but somebody commented that this is such a well-known hymn in the summer, and even I think they sing it at other places other than churches, and they wondered why the Americans didn't know it. So I guess that's why I'm having heard it. Then, let's see. Then other experiences in Sweden. In 1980, my host family in Gothenburg helped me buy an LP record on Swedish music, which the Swedish tenor Jussi Björling was singing Ach Värmeland du Sköna, and which I'll play during refreshments. I do have, it's still the LP record that I bought there. I was sure it was a tape, but then when I couldn't find the tape, I looked, and sure enough, it's an LP record, and I do have my husband's old phonograph, portable phonograph, so we'll have that, but I'm sure you know that one. Very haunting, and I particularly like Jussi Björling, but he died at a very early age. Well, I stayed up evenings in the folk high school library, where I was taking a three-credit course through the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And I think I was the only one in the library much of the time. I was copying words of music to some of the folk songs that I had heard. I was pretty sure that since this was my first trip, I wouldn't have, and we were so highly scheduled that I wouldn't have time to find music, and I didn't know how I would even ask for it. Well, so I still have all of those words, and I made music lines, you know, so I was kind of desperate at that time. Then in 1995, I connected with a second cousin in Gothenburg, a grandson of my grandfather's sister, and this was on the Warmy side. And his sister had remained in Sweden. Nils Landqvist, and he's a wonderful man. He calls me about almost every year after he receives my Christmas letter, and we talk about an hour. He's a retired CEO. Now I found out it's from not only one company, but I think it was a group of Swedish paper companies. And he also wrote a book on our Warmy ironworker family. And this is, I'm going to read for you what he wrote. This was the 29th of February, 1996. And we had just corresponded, I think this was the second correspondence. The Warmy genes are obviously carrying musicality, as you are proving. My grandmother, Amelia Augusta, that's the one sister who stayed back in Sweden, Emily Augusta used to tell me how Peter Magnus on Sunday afternoons used to take his fiddle and play for his dancing children. So that would be my great-great-great-grandfather, I guess. And this was in Lessebo, Sweden, at the ironworks. But then his wife, Maya, or Maria, was not always happy with that, since her religiosity was more solemn, he says. My grandmother, Nils's grandmother, used to play the organ and had a small but nice voice. The same was true for my mother. My Uncle George was a very talented accordionist and played waltzes and polkas with that very special beat that makes dance music. I can still remember the way he played. George was the most wanted musician for the Saturday night outdoor dancing in Lessebo. When he was a young boy, Uncle Einar, who became a congressman for the Social Democrats, brought a fiddle with him home. Grandmother asked him to practice in the woodshed. But after a few evenings, she invited him to stay in the house, so he must have gotten better. I love music myself, but have only a few of those genes. Over the years, I have played the flute with more enthusiasm than talent. I like his sense of humor. I mean, I always feel like he's pulling my leg. Lessebo has many other ironworks, has a good brass band, and it goes back to 1885. On their repertoire, there was a waltz and a polka, a tribute to the Wormies. My father asked Eric Blank, the church cantor in Lessebou, for the corresponding musical notations, and I enclosed copies of them. There could be some doubts about the origin of the polka, but not the waltz. And underneath the waltz music, it says, "So some young means valsen spelades of Gustav Wormy," and then which means, as I remember, the waltz played by Gustav Wormy, notated by Hjalmar Nordström. And so, in connection with his 60th birthday, the company board gave me an unusual birthday present, the right to decide for what purpose a donation of 500,000 Swedish crowns should be used. I gave the money to the Gävle Symphony Orchestra, one of the prides of my hometown at that time, and they were used for an air-conditioned instrument transportation bus. The orchestra also gives concerts in other cities, and in the wintertime, the instruments need a decent climate. The gentleman in charge of the company public relations came from the province of Dalecarlia, famous for its folk music. He had got copies of the waltz and the polka from me because of his own cultural interest. In celebration of my birthday, the company gave a banquet with about 150 guests. Even the government was represented by one of its ministers as well as the governor. Many friends among the Swedish industrial leaders were also present, but this was not the greatest honor. When I came to the banquet hall, I found the whole symphony orchestra at the bandstand, if such a word can be used in connection with symphony orchestras, the bandstand. This was the way they expressed their thanks for the donation. They played during the dinner, a symphony orchestra accepting a chattering audience. So when coming to the dessert, they announced they wanted to bring me a very personal tribute, and softly they began to play a melody so well known to me, Wormy's Waltz, Gustav Wormy's Waltz. It was arranged for the symphony orchestra by William Lind, at that time the chief conductor of the light music orchestra of the Swedish radio and television. My public relations man had not kept the tune to himself. I have forgotten all that was said about my deeds and capability. I barely remember the guests being there, but I remember the roots. I remember how the symphony orchestra played the waltz. And so today we are going to have Mary Stetson play Wormy's Waltz, and I think the polka as well. Okay.
Start with the waltz.
Am I playing that with you? No, I think I'd really like you to play it.
Okay, I'll start with the waltz.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.